Hello. Can everyone stand up for a second? I know that some of you did not go and walk around the demo area. You two upstairs, I can see you. Yeah, barely. You're in the shadows. Just raise your hands really high and stretch towards the ceiling and the skies and the gray skies as high as you can, and then sit down. Thank you very much. Cool. All right. We have Mr. Panel and Mr. Fireside himself, Mr. Martin Sokk, here with us, and myself, Lars. I don't think we need to spend too much time in introductions, so why don't we get straight to the business? Person versus position. What we really want to talk about today is your life and your job. Pretty much everyone here is experiencing the best years of your lives. You too, all right? And if you think about it, like, where you spend those best years of your life matters. And you don't want to waste them. And one of those questions that you want to ask yourself is, should you go and start your startup as a founder? Do you want to join a startup, an early stage or late stage one? Or do you want to join a big, proper scale-up? So this is what we're going to explore today with Martin, because both of us, throughout our careers, we've been through all these three stages. So, Mr. Martin, let's go straight to the business. Founder, startup, or scale-up, which one is going to earn you the most money?
It's actually a pretty cool question. If you think about the last panel here, all the founders, it kind of feels that there's a lot of founders who are really prominent and really rich. So from old times, Jüri Mõis to Kristo Käärmann these days. But if you look into how many of these people actually have made money, if you take arbitrary number, 1 million, how many people have taken money out of 1 million out of the company, then I would say that founders is probably the worst choice to go after money. Series A is probably the best one. If you think about it, the risks are mitigated and whatnot. Joining early stage startup, a lot of things can go wrong there.
I think also if you look at big scale-ups, what I found that is common across all three of them when it comes to reward is how much the reward is a function of the impact you can have on the trajectory of the business. Because even at a big scale-up, people like great leads, for example, who really determine whether they continue to have success, still get rewarded. However, the probabilities are now different when you're a founder versus in a startup versus scale-up.
So you are a scale-up? So why is this a scale-up?
Why is this a scale-up?
Lightyear is startup in the middle, Series A. And year ago, we were just founding this in a way. So I think that on the this kind of scale, Estonia is a really unique position right now where a lot of people make a lot of money in a scale-up. But Estonia is so young and we don't really have many scale-ups, and we haven't had this time where people can start making lots of money. Because high-level positions in the scale-ups make a lot of money, and the risks are rather low in a way. So you have the salary and this kind of component what brings in a lot in a way. But I think today we have probably 2-3 startups or scale-ups in Estonia where you can start doing that with our brief history of time.
Well, one of the things I've learned, by talking to you and some of the other successful people, is that even if you have a lot of money, it doesn't necessarily make you really happy. When you choose between being a founder, a startup, and or a scale-up, what else matters in your opinion?
Are you saying I'm sad?
You tell me.
I think it's cliche saying that money doesn't matter, but in the end, I think it comes down to the fact what you really want to do. If you think about it, what drives you to join startup or build a startup are quite a bit different things. If you want to build a startup, it's kind of the element where you have this crazy curiosity to solve some particular problem. You can't sleep because it doesn't make sense what's happening in the world right now. If you're joining a startup, then it's more about your mission alignment with the other kind of company's mission in the same way. And I think it's in that sector it's rather kind of important to figure out what you want to do, because building a startup because you want to build a startup is like, without actually wanting to do that, you're doing it because it's cool. It's a rather stupid thing to do, I think. Like, it's so hard. Like, you're chewing glass every day and trying to figure out all the problems, how to get runway, and what's the product, and how to scale, and all the people stuff in a way. So if you don't really want to do that, you're not going to last. So in many ways, actually, like a startup or scale-up is quite a bit better solution there.
So in other words, what you're trying to say is like, there's almost like a passion versus mission overlap over here, where if I'm passionate about that pipe over there, and the company's mission is to make the best versions of those pipes and sell them globally and really power halls like this, then that's the right place for me. But if I'm interested in pipes, and the company's doing like building new banks in Silicon Valley, then probably that's not my business, right?
Yeah, I think like the tricky part here is often, like I would suggest everybody to go and like try different things. Like I joined enterprise, not even a startup. I joined enterprise. I was in a stage with Swedbank people, so that was my first place. After that, I tried another enterprise, and I had in this position that like I know a lot about the world. Then I joined TransferWise. I haven't worked in Wise. I worked only in TransferWise, and like my mind was blown in a way because like that operates quite a different kind of manner. And then I started Lightyear, and then my mind is blown every single day because it operates again in a totally different manner, totally different kind of problems and all that stuff that you have. I really enjoy this kind of curiosity and problems and whatnot, but like not everybody.
But so let's break it down in a bit more detail. So let's say I'm Taylor Swift sitting in the audience, and I'm done with my singing career, and I really want to choose one of the three, right? So let's pick like, you mentioned like eating glass earlier about being a founder. When is the right time to become a founder? Or in other words, like, when is not the right time to become a founder?
I think like it comes down to the, like, there's a kind of person who is kind of not happy with the current status quo. And if you're not happy with that for a reasonably long time, then this is the good time to kind of figure out, like, are you like unhappy enough that you're like willing to go through that journey as well? Like I'm looking around here, like STEMI guys are like building the first steps and whatnot. Like amazing product, taking first steps, but like so crazy hard to kind of understand what's the product and all these problems. Or you can like maybe join Lightyear, where we have a lot of these kind of first steps are figured out, and then like you can go from there. So I think like it comes down to the kind of how resilient you want to be in this kind of particular topic. In the same way, when you're going to like thinking about when to give up, is that in startup world, like I can't tell you when you're going to give up. Like you can't give up. Like everything is bad in many ways constantly. So like you need to go through that because like all the best startups have gone through that and finally succeeded. In a scale up, it's more figuring out your mission versus the company mission. It doesn't align and you're not enjoying that. Don't waste your time there. Go and do something different.
What I found is like, for context, like Wise has like thousands of people now. We used to be, an early stage startup and so on, but today we have about 4,500, even more people around the world. And the reasons why people come and spend their best years of their lives at Wise is because either they want to learn, because you're surrounded with some of the best and smartest people in the industry in very specific areas, as well as like some of the best leaders like you can get in the industry. So that's number one. Number two, you are sort of a skillful specialist, and you have your superpowers, but they're raw, and you want to really refine them further, and you want to put them to use. Like, for example, like, let's say you are super passionate about artificial intelligence and catching criminals, right? So there's a whole field of machine learning and anti-money laundering that you just go into and be surrounded by incredible minds and people and just spend your time there and really having an impact. And the final one, which is a big sell for me personally, is that a company like Wise is big, right? We have 60 million customers today. Our customers are moving 100 billion pounds every year across the globe today. It means that the decisions I make, the time that I spend today, has an impact on people around the world today.
This is an interesting point, actually, when you are really interested about fraud and like catching criminals and building that AI solutions there. And if you join scale up, then you can focus on the code and all that stuff. If you figured like, oh, I'm going to build a startup on that, then 95% of your time is like fundraising, marketing, trying to understand like the customers and whatnot, like not much to do with the fraud and all that stuff.
But so, what do you think are like the commonalities, like being a founder, being in a startup, being in a scale up? What are sort of the non-negotiables across the three? And if you don't have them, you probably should go into a mom and pop shop or maybe an enterprise.
I think the kind of the chaos and kind of ability to, sorry, but like call bullshit is like something what like in a startup world has to be in a really good place. I'm calling it like this kind of layer of fog. You're operating in your position, and there's like years of stuff what's built before that. So you have making decisions on the previous legacy kind of questions and problems and all that stuff. So it means that now I need to figure out like, oh, how do I onboard the customer, for example, means that a lot of people have already thought about it and you take it for granted that like it's figured out, these are right decisions. More often than not, we actually go into that fog and see that we made wrong decisions at that time, or time has changed and whatnot, so you can't take it for granted anymore. So effectively what you need to do is that in a fast-moving startup environment, you need to realize like how every single decision process and whatnot kind of impacts, and like how are these like right or wrong decisions. And like these startups or like the companies who are like fast-growing and are successful in that, they are able to cut through that fog. So others can rely on that, and like you don't want to create the chaos, like touching all the old stuff what was made the decisions, because maybe it's disrupting the kind of the work and like you're doubting other people and whatnot. But like you have to do that to be actually rather agile and like get into a good position.
So basically what you're saying is like you should be able to think with your own brain and not just take things for granted. The way how we call it at Wise is like you need to have a good bullshit filter. And what it means is like, let's take, when we expanded to Singapore, and the way how you onboarded customers in Singapore is that you had to open up an office, you had to put a jack literally in the office to look at every customer one at a time. Can you imagine doing that in a tech startup effectively, right? And so one approach is to just do that forever and build more offices, hire Jills and Jacks and all sorts of friends across the country. Or you could just ask like, well, wait a minute, what risk is this mitigating? Why is it more valuable for me to look at you in the face as opposed to trust you and your online credentials, et cetera? So what we did was we spent time with the Singapore regulators and said, hey, like, maybe that law that you wrote down in 1976 is now outdated. Maybe Jack doesn't need to look you in the eyes to become a customer and save money. So what we did was we managed to change the law in conjunction with the Singapore government so that not just Wise benefits from it, but everyone in the industry and the customers can now have more choice. And that would not happen if you like just take things for granted. You kind of assume that, hey, just because things have been done in this way, you know, it should be done in this way forever. No, it shouldn't.
Yeah, like I think it's like effectively challenging you and your processes every single day. So that's the tricky part. Like otherwise it can be confusing, but also at the same time, if you're successful in that, then you're light years ahead of everybody else.
But so if we go back to the three ones, founder, startup, and scale up, do you think it's a linear path, like from one to the other to the third, or do you think it's circular, or do you think it's backwards? How do you, like, what does the path look like these days?
So my path was the biggest company, the fastest motorcycle. Then I went to smaller company, smaller motorcycle. Now I founded the company, I have a bicycle. So effectively, my risk levels have also gone down quite considerably in that sense. But I don't think it, like, people should try different things. Like, you should go into, like, I'm really happy that I started from enterprise because, like, that gave me, like, a structure that I understand, like, you have to have a machine what kind of moves around, and, like, you can't disrupt this machine. So, and also in many ways I learned that nobody gives a fuck about me, And like, I think it's a good thing to think about it because you're not in the center of the world. You need to make things happen to actually produce something. So going into the small startup, you see a lot of this kind of everything is tied to you because if you're not coming to work, it's like that startup doesn't work next day. So I think there's a lot of these kind of dynamics and a lot of lessons to learn from kind of all the stages. So I would say that find whatever makes sense for you today, go there and like iterate after that.
And I guess maybe the only thing I'd add is it's okay to change, right? It's okay to go from one to the other. I remember when I first joined Wise. For context, this guy actually hired me at Wise 8 years ago. And the way how it looked like was I founded a book publishing company about 16 years ago. And by that time, like 8 years ago, like I got a bit tired. I wanted to do something else. So I applied to Wise. I went through the first interview round, and Martin pulls me over and says, "Hey, Lars, you're like a cool guy, but you don't really know how to build products." I'm like, "Okay." And he's like, "Are you good at math?" I'm like, yeah, I'm good at math. Like, I wrote math books. I'm very confident. He's like, "Okay, I'm going to give you a bit of data. Like, find something interesting in it." I was like, "Okay, yes, I'm going to do like a cool Excel exercise. I have a fancy like degree in finance. Like, I can do it." And then a day later, I get a file. The file itself is like several hundred megabytes, okay? A single file. So I'm like, okay, I'll import it into Excel, and it crashed. I was like, okay. Now, for some of you who are comfortable with data, it's like, this guy must be an idiot. So I did what naturally an idiot would do. I Googled how to analyze big data. And the first response said, like, learn Python. Nowadays, you probably just ask ChatGPT to do it for you. So I literally learned Python and analyzed all the things. And about a week later, I then, showed up with results. I did the other interview, and the rest is history. And to this day, 8 years later, I still use some of the skills that I built. And I guess the lesson that I took away from this experience, and you might have a different view on this, but the lesson that I took away is like, change is scary, but it's okay. And the challenges that are coming your way is the path that you're gonna take, regardless of whether you become a founder, you wanna join then a scale-up. If you've been in a scale-up, you wanna join a startup. And one of the coolest things is like, when you've been in a scale-up, you're gonna go and try and do a startup. Doesn't work out. And quite a few people, we now call boomerangs, who have actually come back to Wise like after a 2-year gap, and they're super happy, so engaged, and having more impact than ever before.
I don't know if I have told you so, but like the point of that exercise was to figure out if person is willing to learn things. Most people give up on that stage. I actually couldn't care less what's the result. Like the moment you said like you learn Python, it's like hired. Doesn't matter. But like that's the thing, like that's the hardest thing. Like we get stuck in our kind of mental model. And like the saddest thing what I see is that you have a person is highly successful in the world. They are head of big enterprise or big startup or something. They have a nice house and family and whatnot, and they're crazy sad. And they're sad because they are not willing to take the risk to go and change the job because it might go boom, or you have a family you need to take care of and all that stuff. So if you're really sad, you can't make a decision, and now the rest of your life is that, like, don't do that. I think like in many ways, especially in the tech world, like there's so many different opportunities, and you can learn today everything. Like there's like so many things. If you're willing to put yourself into the position that you learn, like all the doors are open for you. And I think that's the trick, actually.
So if we were to wrap it up then and try to summarize what we discussed today. So number one is like, these are the best years of your life. And you want to invest them in a company that truly cares about you. And so the thing you want to pay attention to is your passion and the company mission overlap. The more there is, the more likely you're going to be successful. Number two, regardless of which one do you choose, founder, startup, scale up, use your superpowers and the curiosity, as we heard before on the stage, and learning can be that superpower. Use that to your advantage. And understand what you're getting yourself into. If you become a founder, you need to be ready to eat glass, but don't hesitate to try out all three. It's not a linear path anymore. Like, you can try out one thing, doesn't work out, try the other one. Like, yeah, it's pretty cool nowadays.
Yeah, I think like get rid of ego. There's so many cool things what you can do. So many cool startups, scale-ups, and whatnot. I think Estonia, especially today, is in a weird state that you have world-class companies who are operating on a level what like nobody has seen in Estonia like 10 years ago. Like, it's a crazy level. So you can be a specialist, world-class specialist in any of these startups. So like, do it. And I think like the only requirement is you're willing to learn. And if you're able to do that, then fine.
Did we have any questions from the audience on this? By the way, did you know you can scan in that QR code and you can interact with the people on the stage as well?
No, we don't have any questions.
Excellent. Well, in that case, let's do the final thing. Everyone stand up for a second. Yeah. Apparently, exercise, you got to take care of yourself as well, right? That's part of your passion. Raise your hands up really, really high. Stretch yourself. Yes, good. Fantastic. Oh, by the way, let's do this as well. Just keep that right hand up, okay?
Oh,
and
shit.
repeat after me. Oh!
Oh!
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Thank you.